All right, I gotta get my notes squared away here. Hey, I made it here and I'm on time. So I know there was a lot of bets out there that I wouldn't make it on time. Pay up. Keith, I've gotten to know you a lot better. I've known you for many years, but I've gotten to know you a lot better over this past year. And I can see why everybody has such huge respect for him. I tell you, you really care about our industry, number one. Number two, you're sincere and honest as the day is long. And three, you work your butt off, albeit 4 days a week. So I'd like to see where I can get a hold of that program. Mike, you hear that? Yeah, Keith doesn't work on Fridays. All right, well, got a great looking crowd. I appreciate it. Everybody's quieted down a little bit. It was a little rowdy with the auction there. I think some of you might find that I missed my calling. I can talk pretty fast, but I don't know if I can talk as fast as Gary. But I should have been an auctioneer at some point in time. So, if at any point, feel free to tell me I might need to slow down a hair. As Anas said a little bit earlier, I appreciate everybody being here. We're over 1,100 folks. I'd like to think that was because of my, I won't say that. My good looks and my sense of humor is why you're all here, but I'm certain that's not the case. But I thought I would just throw it out there. But give yourselves a round of applause for having the biggest crowd we've had ever here. All right, I know we've been in here. It's getting pretty late, so I'm going to go over a few things I'm going to cover. First, I want to recognize and speak about some of the people here that make our association as strong as it is. Then I want to talk a little bit about my background, but Keith already pretty much summed it up pretty good. It's not that exciting. My family and my smooth ride at Ajax. Last, I'd like to discuss a couple topics of interest with me, and then a worthy mission that I think we can all get behind. So to get things started with the convention, in keeping with tradition, I'd like to recognize our past chairmen that are here with us tonight. If you all could please stand to be recognized. All our past chairmen, come on, stand up. Tell you what, thank you all for your dedication, your hard work. You are a significant part of the traditions that we do have, so thank you for your contributions. They're definitely appreciated. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with our board structure, we're made up of 30 members that cover all the districts across our state, and an additional 7 that are selected for our executive committee. So, if I could, first, please recognize our board of directors. If you guys could stand, or did I just have you stand? Go ahead, board of directors, please stand. Thank you. Now, I would like to individually recognize our executive board. So if you guys would please stand and remain standing as I call your name. Our chairman-elect next year is Mr. Kevin Hicks with Gator Grading and Paving. Please stand, Kevin. Our secretary and treasurer, Mr. Joey Anderson III. Rick Contos with Traffic Management Solutions. Mr. John Hooper with Preferred Materials. And our newest member to the executive committee, Mr. Arthur Birchall. Some of you might know him as Rusty, but his first name is Arthur. Look, as you can see, we've got great representation across the state, and we are in great shape for the years to come. We have a really strong bench, so thank you guys. Along with the records we've been setting this year, we've also set a record with our fellow group. We've graduated our first Fellow class, could you guys please stand up? So if you don't know, this was a NASA idea, and I like the name, it's FELA, but that stands for the FTBA's Emerging Leaders Academy. So what we have here is, it's made up of 11 contractors, and we have 2 folks from FDOT. These are our future leaders in the room, so get a good look at them. And from all the feedback we received, they all seem to have a really good time with the program. The goal was to kind of give them a look at things they're going to be dealing with throughout their career at more of a 50,000-foot level. How funding is handled at the department, how Gainesville and the State Materials Labs works, and everything in between. And I know the group, I've talked to a lot of them, they all had a really great first time around. So I think we just created a new tradition that's going to be around for a long time. So thank you guys. And by the way, stay tuned, we'll be announcing here very soon our 2nd annual FELA class that'll be coming here pretty soon. Next, NASA already recognized all the department folks that we have here. We have all our districts here, and we have our top brass from Tallahassee. But I would like to tell you guys, I would say, I won't make you stand again, but it's been quite the whirlwind here for the last year and a half. It started back a little over a year ago when Kevin Tebow, our former secretary, departed for the Orlando International Airport, which was right after we got him a raise, which I thought was pretty ironic. But he left, and that sent all the chairs and all the seats in Tallahassee moving around. So just as everybody was figuring out their new role and their new seats in Tallahassee, then came Hurricane Ian that devastated Southwest Florida. Overnight, Secretary Perdue, he became a Twitter star. He was following the governor around and trying to keep us all updated on what we were doing to get these islands rebuilt. But thank you all to your leadership and from the governor. We were able to create creative procurement methods to get the help and resources to Sanibel and Pine Island in record time and do our small part to get them all back on their feet. So thank you, DOT. Then, meanwhile, while that was going on, we were in the middle of a major supply chain disruption, which brought significant material delays that you guys are all aware of, steep price escalations. So Secretary Perdue, you and your team quickly understood something needed to be done. There was no way the contracting industry could have anticipated these giant price hikes. So after many meetings with your folks and many of you in here, we were all able to engineer a material price index on many of the materials to try to keep contractors and projects moving, because it was rough. So not only did we get that done in a record amount of time to keep this industry going, you guys were all pioneers in making this happen. I mean, the entire United States was facing these same material supply chain shortages, and all the other states were kind of standing by, waiting to see what Florida and FDOT did, because they weren't as quick and nimble as you guys were to react. And once you guys made some decisions, there were many other states that followed. So we appreciate your willingness, your agility, and your willingness to listen to us and help us when we were in need. So thank you, DOT. You definitely won't forget all of our sponsors. They are a huge part of our organization. As you can see, many of them here on the wall. I think we had over 40-some sponsors here, but you guys are an important part of our world, and you help all of our events. We've got many events that we do all year, so thank you to all of our sponsors that spend the time and the effort and the money. Thank you. Now we're going to get to a piece that I'm pretty passionate about. It's our advocacy side. So we use Ballard Partners and Brad Burleson. I know he's in here tonight. They've kind of been our main go-to partner in Tallahassee now for over a decade now. But I can tell you from my perspective, I feel like this is a very important part, because I don't think as many folks know what is going on behind the scenes. But I can tell you myself, when I decided to get more involved on this side, it was about 15 years or so ago. I was pretty naive myself to all the things that they were getting done. But it was back in 2008. I'm sure we all remember 2008 and the housing crash and the recession that came. We all were, before that, 2005, 6, 7, we were all rolling along nicely. Everything was good in our world. And then overnight, the private market, the housing market crashed and the private market dried up basically overnight. So what happened? You guys all know what happened. All of those folks that were in the private market came to DOT. Why'd they come to DOT? They're the only ones that had the money. Well, again, this led to an oversaturated government market. Now we had contractors that were not familiar with the contractual terms the department has. Many of us in this room found us fighting for work, bidding jobs. The jobs that we did get, we were bidding them in fantasy land. We just needed to try to keep our employees. We were trying to hang on to our folks and keep them working. This went on for years, and it was tough. Then what happens after that? Now we've got work out there that's not right. We're fighting for every dime. We're scrutinizing every specification with the department. We're fighting to get paid, and it just creates an entire atmosphere that was not very conducive for construction. I can tell you myself, from being an area manager at the time, going to do your financial statements at the end of the month was not a fun time. So why do I drag you guys all through these not so fond memories? We're in a great spot right now, really good spot, funding-wise. And the next few years will look really good. But some of these increases are one-time increases, like the COVID bump. And I've come to realize that if there's not adequate enough funding in our industry, I don't care how good you can build a road, pave a road, doesn't matter. If there's not enough funding, we're all going to struggle. So it was that point in time when I started getting myself a lot more involved in Tallahassee, getting to know Bob Burleson at the time. I think I met Anath when I was there, going to D.C. and talking to these folks. And it's a little intimidating at first, but it's not that bad. Once you get there, it's not that bad. So this is where our advocacy partners are a huge help. They're a big help to Anath. They're a big help to us. They know all these folks. They're helping us get the one-on-one meetings that we need. They're helping to get us in front of these guys, and they're carrying our message to them. And I know Anath spends a lot of his time talking with Brad and some of their staff, and we also use capital partners for some of our work too. So this is important. You have to, but here's what you guys may not realize. Every 2 years, so we're working with these folks, building relationships for the next 4 to 6 years down the road, and that takes a lot of time. Every 2 years, a new class comes in, and they're deciding at that time who's going to be the next Speaker of the House, who's going to be the next President of the Senate. They decide that in the first year or two, which sounds kind of crazy, I know. So down the road, 8 years toward the end, now these are the people that are in leadership. So we have to build those relationships with a long-term goal in mind, the future in mind. And remember, these legislators, they come from all walks of life. They're lawyers, they're businessmen, they own companies, like our legislator representative here at our table, who's Mr. Trunow, who's a sod farmer. As a matter of fact, I may shock you guys with this. So there's 160 seats in our Florida legislature. That includes the House and the Senate. You may want to garner a guess as to how many of those senators or representatives are engineers? 0. We don't have one engineer that's in that house right now working for us. We had one a couple years ago, but she's no longer there. So I leave you this. It's vital that we educate them on what we need in our industry and send the message to them to keep Florida moving forward. That is our goal. We don't just talk to them about funding. We talk about legislative changes like tort reform, safety measures to keep our people safe. There's a lot of things they can do to help us help ourselves. So, all right, I'll get off this ramp. But In my experience over the last 15 years since we've been going to these meetings, I tend to see the same 10 to 15 contractors that are all here that are show up to these one-on-one meetings with our legislators. This is the leadership. I would ask this: when we come to a town near you, I'd love to see a table full of new faces and old faces. Yes, these meetings often do require a check, but I think it's well worth it, and we need more folks coming out to these meetings within Athens. So please challenge your folks. It's not as scary as you think it is. We get a good meal, we have a good time, and you really get to know these people. And they're good people. I don't know if I can say the same for DC, but they're good people. But these people in Florida, they're here for a reason. Yeah, they're here to make Florida better. So yeah, thank you. All right, moving on to the really important people, our huge FTBA staff, all 4 of them. Although we just moved to 5, in case some of you didn't know. Starting with the ladies that make Anath look good. I don't know if they're all still here, but Cynthia Hartfield. Cynthia, are you here? She handles all of our finances and keeps us well balanced. We need that sometimes. Stacy Heidel, I'm sure you all know Stacy. She is the most tenured of our staff and the keeper of all things FTBA. She also coordinates all of our events throughout the year, including this one, which is no small task to pull this off and do it so smoothly. So thank you, Stacy. Heather Hicks. Heather here? Heather, she handles our website, newsletters, basically anything to do with marketing. Or if you've got any questions, she can take care of it. She handles our marketing side. So thank you for what you do, Heather. And now our newest member, who's been here for a month now, Miss Angela DeLune. I've had the chance to meet her here this week, and I can tell you she is already fitting in like she's been here for months. Her goal here is to help these events and keep these events going, and also look for some new benefits to our members that can help our members. And by the way, thank you all for the Crown Apple touch. These bougie hotels never have my Crown Apple, but I've noticed it at a couple of these places. So thank you. Thank you. Last but not least, the guy that's the engine that makes our association run, Anath Prasad. I've been around him for a long time now, and he does make you feel pretty small with the kind of things that guy accomplishes. He is the hardest worker. I know you've heard it before, but I've seen it. This guy, of course, everybody knows by now, the former secretary, but he understands how to navigate the department and help them get things done what they need to do to get things done from his days as secretary. He understands all the intricacies that happen at the state capitol building and how to get a bill passed. And let me tell you, that's not a simple task. He understands us and our business and all the risks that we deal with each and every day. He understands that and listens. He's relentless. If he hears a no, he's immediately out to another option. He's got another creative option he's trying to do to get a win. Anath does not like to lose, I can tell you that. He doesn't forget anything either, which makes me crazy because I forget everything. But he remembers, if he sees a name or a person or a place, he remembers them all. So, by the way, he is a Gator. So, what? I don't need to say any more. Thank you, now. Did I hear it, Boo? We're coming back. We're getting better. All right, now I'd like to introduce you to my family. And I'd like to first start with my brother Brian and his wife Danielle. If you all would stand up. They have 3 kids that are here probably terrorizing the team party about now. After high school, Brian spent a nice 8 years touring most of the college educational system, only to find he found his coveted 4-year degree at USF in Management Information Systems. Then after a couple years in that industry, he hated it, and he called me, asking me to put him on at Ajax. Like, what am I going to do with an MIS degree at Ajax Paving? That's computer stuff. We hardly had computers back then. Well, he came on board, we figured it out, and now he's been with us for about 20 years, so glad you're on board. My dad, Vernon Pittman, and his wife, Tina, if you'd please stand up. FYI, for the few of you that don't know, my first name is Vernon, middle name Scott, so. My dad insisted I be a Vernon. My mom wanted me to be a Brian, so here we are. And a long story short, a friend of mine who works in the business, he's over in the Orlando area. Well, he insisted that he was trying to schedule me a flight, so I had to send him my driver's license. This is probably 10 years ago. As soon as he saw Vernon Scott, it was over. So anytime I'm in Orlando, I'm known as Vernon. Everybody I know in Orlando. So if I see you in Orlando, you can call me Vern. You would know, right? But other than that, Tampa and everywhere else, I'm Scott. But you know what? I've kind of gotten used to the Vern. I didn't like it as much when I was younger, but I've gotten a little used to it, so it's not that bad. Anyway, Dad, I'm extremely grateful for the lessons that you and Mom have taught me growing up, how to be a decent human being. I've always admired your consistency, your work ethic, your compassion, and your strength and faith. Thank you. My girlfriend, Brittany Reisfelder, will you please stand up? She loves this. We actually ran into each other at a construction conference a year or so ago. So you see, networking does pay off. Now, she's an amazing individual. What's even more amazing is she's put up with me, especially this past year or so. She is from Boston, so I don't try to hold that against her. If you're speaking with her, you'll probably never hear her pronounce the letter R. But I am thankful you showed up in my life when you did. You're an amazing person. Thank you for being you. Next, my two kids, Avery and Chase. Could you please stand up? "18 years ago, I couldn't have dreamed to have two better, more responsible children. Unlike myself, where I needed constant reminders to focus on my homework and stay out of trouble. Not these two. They are intelligent, responsible, caring kids. I'm so very proud of your achievements to date and the young adults that you two have become. Your future's bright, and I have no doubt you'll have a positive impact in this world sooner than later. I can't wait to see where you land. Thank you." Man, mouth's getting dry. All right, I'll probably shorten this up a little bit. Keith kind of covered, again, like I said, me growing up. Again, I was born and raised in Melbourne. Both my parents were school teachers. And I believe my dad figured out, yeah, good for school teachers. I like it. I think my parents figured out that two teacher salaries, now that we've had two boys, things are going to be a little tight. So my dad decided to go back and get his master's degree during the summer and at nights, and went on from there to work in contracts with Harris Corporation for the next 20 years there in Melbourne. As for me, I was mostly about being outside and playing any sport that involved a ball. That was kind of my focus. Go out, whether it be basketball, baseball, football. That was my world. As I got into high school, I decided, look, maybe I should focus on baseball. Baseball is probably the best option I have to maybe get my college paid for and move on. So after graduating as a Melbourne Bulldog at Melbourne High School, I moved on to 13th and 14th grade. That's what we called it over there, Brevard Community College. Played there for a couple years. We had some great teams, but both years we wound up state runner-up. So if you won the state, you got to go to Grand Junction, Colorado. Now, I didn't know where Grand Junction, Colorado is. I just wanted to win and go there. But it didn't work out. Didn't work out from there. So then I didn't really have any offers after that. I had a couple small offers, but they weren't for me. I've always wanted to be a Gator my entire life. So it was time to go to UF. It was then I was told, well, you need to figure out a major now. This grade school stuff is over. You got to figure out what you're going to do. You're going to be a junior now. Well, I'm like, well, all I know is I'm pretty damn good with math, but I am terrible at reading and writing. So everybody that would advise me, you might want to get into engineering or go to business school. Well, flip the coin, I decided to go to civil engineering, and I'm happy I did. It's definitely fit me for sure. But now that was done, I was ready to go play baseball. So I was going to go try to walk on to Florida's baseball team. I think it was about then I found out really quick how big the University of Florida was. I went out there the first day of tryouts, and there was 250 people looking like me trying to figure out how to make the baseball team. It went pretty well. It went okay, but it didn't work out. My baseball career was extended about a week. We made it through the week. They narrowed it down to about 10 or 12 of us. We scrimmaged the team, yada, yada, yo. Coach got on his bench and said, I don't think I have a spot for you, which was a little devastating for me because I'd always looked at school as kind of the avenue to play a higher level of sports. That was always what kind of drove me. So now I was like, well, mercy. I'm just going to go to school to go to school. I just figured you go to school, make sure you pass your classes, and you can go play sports. So that was then. It was a little devastating when I was told no. So, what was that? I don't know what that was. All right, so we'll fast forward a little bit. So, yeah, I did make it to graduation. I did get done. I did stay an extra half a year, fall of '96, which just happened to be a national championship year for our Florida Gators. Thank you. So then it was time to go get a job. I started interviewing in fall '96. I went through a bunch of interviews and engineers, contractors. And I had finally kind of landed on an engineering firm in Jacksonville or a contractor in Orlando. And after some thought, I said, you know what? I don't think I can see myself, no offense to any of the engineers that may be in here, I could see myself behind a desk designing jobs. So I decided, I kind of had my mind made up. I was going to go to the contractor in Orlando. Then I got a call out of nowhere from this company called Ajax Paving. You got to remember, back then there wasn't any internet really. It was just becoming a thing. I can promise you Ajax didn't have any internet back then, or a website. I thought maybe it was a cleaning product. So this guy, Mark Minnick, said he was driving up. He'd gotten a stack of resumes from one of the professors who I do remember giving them to. He had like 40 resumes. And he went through the 40 resumes, and he just called me. And he said, I called you because you're the only engineer that had played any sports outside of high school. I said, that's interesting. Okay. Well, so he wasn't worried about my stellar 3.0 GPA. He was just, interested. So, okay, this is interesting. Well, he was actually taking his son, who was a graduating senior at the time, up to Florida and then to Auburn to do a tour. Turns out he made a mistake and went to Auburn. But anyway, we interviewed. They sent me down to Tampa for a couple days. I drove around with them. It must be my voice. Is that what's causing that? Anyhow, I go down there to Ajax. I ride around for a day or two. I didn't know what an asphalt plant was. I'd done some roofing jobs in the summers. I did that to make money. But I had not ever been around an asphalt plant. Was pretty interested. I think he passed me off one day to Mike Horan, and Mike drove me up and showed me a few things. And then he kind of tricked me, but it wasn't very tricky. He asked me, he goes, well, you got any other job offers? And I was so proud. Yes, I do. I've got somebody I'm looking to go to Orlando. And he goes, well, what are they going to pay you? I said, $32,000 a year and a $450 car stipend. I was so proud. He didn't say anything after that. About a week goes by, and I get back to college, and I've got a letter in the mail from Ajax. It was a job offer. Well, guess what it was? $32,500 and a vehicle stipend. I said, all right, I'm going to Ajax. Let's go. That $500 is all it took, Mike. It was good. I like it. But, hey, I tell you, I couldn't be more thankful for where I'm at, being able to work with you, and I feel like you've been my boss since day one, but you've never been on top of me or tried to tell me what to do, even though I was over my skis more than once. You let me just go be me. So I can't thank you enough for the opportunities you've given me to go figure it out. It took me a while, but I kind of figured some of it out. Well, I'm still learning, I can tell you that. So thank you, Mike Coran. So while I was there, I spent a little bit of time doing it. I'll give you a quick little history of that, and we'll get off of me. Spent a few years there doing a little bit of everything, like everybody else. We had an engineering training program in the field, working with our crews for a year or so, going to the plants, building a couple small jobs, did some estimating. But then we finally, in 98, 99, we got a full reconstruction job. So it was 4 miles of a 2-lane road, Limeball Avenue, there near West Chase, that was going to go to 4 lanes. I'm still not sure how we got that job. We were a paving company, and we had a new fancy estimator in town who picked it up and won the job. So it was a $7.5 million job, which again, back in the late 90s, that was a pretty good sized job. It was complete with storm drain, water, sewer, it had everything, curb, sidewalk. And what I can tell you is Florida has an amazing engineering program, but they don't prepare you for the construction side of things. So I can honestly tell you that I went out there in the first month or two, I didn't know if the sidewalk went first or the sod or the pipe. I didn't really know. I had the 2 little mill and resurface jobs I'd done too hadn't quite prepared me. But the next 2 years I spent living on that job, and I can tell you that it gave me the construction education that I really needed. That get me, all right, now I've seen it. And once I see it, I've got to see it. Once I see it, we're good now. So I thought I was ready to go. Then we decided was an opportunity to buy another company, R.E. Purcell, in 2001. And that's when I thought I was good to go. He gave me the opportunity to go up there and be area manager. Well, I quickly found out again that I wasn't quite ready for all that. It took me another year or two to kind of figure out dealing with the people and how to bring a team together, which was somewhat natural, but it was a challenge. A lot of different tools, but we did that, and from there we just kind of kept growing. We ended up merging a couple of our areas, and by 2012, we bought R.E. Purcell again, but this time he was ready to get out of the business. So not only just buy his asphalt plant, we bought his pipe crews, his concrete crews, about 150 people really. So we kind of doubled overnight. We were about 200 or 250 people in Tampa. So the job got a little busier, but it was exciting times. And that's really kind of how where I had grown and gotten my education, I'll say. So since then, and then ironically, about 4 or 5 years ago, the same guy that was going to visit the colleges when I was getting hired by his dad, who was my estimator for many years, he became our area manager of Tampa back in 2019. So now I spend my time working on our advocacy side of things, where I spend a lot of my time, our design build group, doing some teaming with Mr. Felipe, and our marketing team. Again, thank you, Mike, and all the people I've had the opportunity to work with. I've had some amazing folks. They're still here. A lot of them are here tonight that I've had the pleasure to be able to work with and help me kind of shape my career. So I want to thank all you guys and Mike Coran and Mark Minnick for finding that resume. So thank you. All right, let's bring this thing home here. A couple things I want to cover. Are our DOT folks still here? No, all right. As chairman, the first thing I would like to do, and I'd like to do it right here or right now. Will or Dan, are you here? Oh, there you are. It's hard to see in the bright lights here. I want to make a spec change or amend the specification. Does anybody know the spec 8-6.4? Suspension of contractors, operations / holidays. I want to propose right now that we make Super Bowl Sunday an official FDOT holiday. Can we do that? If we can do that, my work is done here, Dan. Approve? I love it. My work is done. In all seriousness, a few reasons here, and they're very obvious reasons. One, I don't think any of us ever schedule our work on Super Bowl Sunday. It is one probably behind St. Patrick's Day, one of the biggest alcohol consumption days of the year. And we do not want our folks out there working with that kind of stuff. When the game's over and they're driving home, we don't want our people out there in the work zone working. So that's number one. And number two, it's an American tradition. Who wants to go pave asphalt when they can be watching the Super Bowl? We should be able to get that day and take that day off because we don't work it anyway. So I would just ask that we, here, I got the gavel right here. You want to get this thing done right now? Good. All right, done. The next thing I want to briefly go over, and I don't want to get too long-winded on it, but I'm pretty passionate about, and it's kind of probably really the theme of my being. To me, it's about communication. It's about building teams and gaining trust with the people you work with. That's kind of really how I've built my career. I know everybody in here, everybody's got something good there, and sometimes we get stuck in an atmosphere where it's contentious. We're there with the owner and we're the contractor, and sometimes it can get a little awkward. So I remember back thinking, how am I going to solve this? And this is back in 2001 or 2002. And I'd go to these district quarterly meetings. And we've all been to the district quarterly meetings. And I would say, how in the world can you really get to know? I mean, I want to know everybody in that room. I want to know the consultants and the DOT staff and the contractors. You kind of knew who they were, but you didn't really. And I'm saying, how are you going to, in a stuffy atmosphere, how are you going to really get to know these people? So I remember grabbing a couple folks that I had casually known at the end of the meeting in one of our quarterly meetings. Happened to be Jeff Nelson and Arthur Birchall there. I said, do you guys like to have a beer? Do you ever like to go get a beer? And they're like, well, yeah, they're contractors, so of course they like to go get a beer. I said, well, why can't we get everybody in this room out maybe once a month at a different location to really get to know each other, have a drink, relax, get to know who you're at. So after that meeting, I think we went to Fridays or something like that. They were still around back then. And started concocting our plan to create a social. At the time, Bob Burleson, he was the chairman, or the president of FTBA at the time. Talked to him a little about it. He loved the idea. So, but he told us he wanted an acronym for it. So we really put our heads together, and we came up with YLG. Now, that was a terrible name. It was the Young Leadership Group. So I think what had happened, I mean, the older guys back then, who are actually the really old guys right now, because I'm old, they didn't like it because they felt like it was just for the young folks to go to, and that was not the intent of the thing. The intent was to get DOT in a room, consultants, contractors. We all have the same battles. We're all fighting the same fights. Why aren't we communicating as a group? I mean, at the end of the day, our job is to deliver the roads to the taxpayer. That's our job. So if we can all be more efficient and get to understand each other and work better, it seems like it's a win-win for me. So that's how we got the FTBA Social started. We did them in Tampa for about a year or so. They went pretty well. Then Bob asked us to go to Miami. Can you go down to Miami and help get Miami Social kicked off? So I'll never forget, we're getting in Jeff's little plane there that I could barely fit in. We flew down to Miami, and I'll never forget walking into this giant, right off 595, this giant sports bar that had this huge room. And there was maybe 150 people there. Now, we only had like 50 people in Tampa that were getting together. There were 150 people, and they were all lined up along the wall. And they were just talking and pointing and like, I think I know that guy over there. And it was clear to me that all these people knew those names and thought they knew him more, but they didn't know each other. So we got in there, and we did our little spiel for about 5 minutes and said, look, the whole intent of this is just for everybody to socialize, get to know a little bit about your other folks. I know for some of you younger folks, you might think this is foreign, but I can tell you, 20 years ago, contractors liked to hold things pretty close to the vest. They thought they had a secret that nobody else knew about, and they didn't want to share anything. So it was a different world. But I can tell you, after sitting there for about an hour or two, and all of a sudden they started like coming off the walls, and the people started getting together, and they started communicating and sharing stories and thoughts or engineering ideas or things to do. And so that's kind of where it went from there. I say this because it's been a little bit. Matter of fact, it's been over 20 years now we've been doing it. I think we missed our 20th anniversary in Tampa. But lately I've seen that it's a lot more, it's great. We're still having great turnouts and they're very strong, but I would like to see a bigger contractor presence. I would love to see DOT, who used to get there, to start coming back out. Consultants. Let's get our. You don't have to go to. It's maybe 4 or 5 nights a year, but to get out and meet some of your folks, I think it's important. So I'd encourage you, especially for the folks that are a little bit younger in your office. Again, it's not a younger thing, but it's a great opportunity for them to make a lot of contacts with folks that they're gonna use for a long time and learn a lot more. So that is my request. Thank you. All right, here's another one that I might get some eye rolls, but AI. I know everyone here has heard about AI and the chat GBTs and the BARD and all that stuff's out there. I took it upon myself here because I feel like I know this technology is coming, and we're not going to stop it. I think we're at a spot now where this is going to start taking over some of our lives. So in a moment of poor thought, I actually decided to, I actually asked ChatGPT, where's the best place to get an education on AI? I want to know this stuff. I don't want it to be, I'm not sure what it is. So it told me Cornell. So I signed up for 6 2-week classes on AI and how you can incorporate it into your businesses and use it. Well, I got to tell you, I'm about 3 2-week classes in, and I got to tell you guys, it's impressive the stuff you can do out there. I can even tell you this, from my convention tour this summer, I believe everyone that I went to had some speaker there trying to tell us how AI will fit into construction. Now, before you think I'm crazy, it's not going to start operating our equipment yet, or run an asphalt plant yet, but it's coming. Where AI exceeds is the repetitive tasks that we all find ourselves doing daily. It learns from your data. It loves data. It can eat endless amounts of data faster in a blink of an eye that we can't do. So I'm excited about it. Imagine this. Imagine if your emails, based on how you respond or what you read all the time, once you've had thousands of emails, it will automatically delete emails you're never going to read. Get rid of them on one-on-ones. Or it can even respond. It knows what it's reading, and if you've already responded to an email to somebody else, it can automate a response for you. Yeah, you can look at it before you send it. I would advise that until you get comfortable with it. But over time, it learns who you are. Writing letters for you in a second. I'm sure you guys have tried that. You could write a letter or RFI, write proposals. It could write proposals for you. If you dump all your proposal history, if you're doing design build, and you've got 50 design proposals you've done, you put that in the system, it knows everything about your company, what you're trying to do. Now you tell it a little bit about the job you're looking at. It's not going to do everything for you, but it can give you a foundation. You'd be shocked. And it's still young. There's more. It's going to take a little more time before it gets really good, but it can do some things. It can find candidates to run your company. It knows from all the applications the type of people you hire, what you're looking for with people. It can find you your staff to get them interviews. Imagine if you accept a calendar invite and it automatically books your room in your hotel for you. Done. Already got it. All you're trying to do is figure out how to save time. Calculate your material needs based on your geographic location, based on your backlog. It can recap a Zoom meeting. It can listen to your Zoom meeting and create an action plan while you're in the meeting. It can have a plan of action based on what everybody's saying and what they're listening to. It'll spit you out in seconds. Here's what everybody talked about. Here's your action plan going forward. You can even book your Friday tea time based on history. If you got a Friday tea time you're always going to, it might already have your tea time booked. Anyway, I could go on forever, but I'd just like to say, that's funny. Thank you. Hey, all we're trying to do right now is find a way to free up 20, 30% of our times on the things that we do over and over every day. If you can find that, now you got your people spending more time doing the more complicated things that it's not ready to do. So I would highly encourage you folks to take a minute and get into it a little bit. Last, and I'm done. A memorial for our fallen. This is something Mike ran. It's been a project he's been working on here for years now in ANAF, and I think with DOT there was some language that was complicating things, I'll say. I don't know the exact story. But our goal is to build a memorial for our employees that we have died in our industry building our roads. So the goal was to find some of the most visited rest areas across our state and build an attention-getting memorial that will remind drivers basically of two things, maybe even more than that. One, like I said, remember the folks that have given their lives while trying to build our roadways, whether it be DOT or contractor or consultant, it doesn't matter. And two, give these travelers, when they're taking a break, going to stop and have a sandwich or going to the restroom, have an eye-catching area where they can see these folks and remind them to maybe avoid distracted driving, slow down through our work zones. Take a second. Those are our people. Those are human beings that are working in these dangerous conditions to please keep our people safe so we can get them back home every day. But to make this happen, this isn't going to happen overnight. First, we're going to need a creative engineer or architect who can create a vision for what this would be that we're going to build. See, now in Michigan, this is where Mike had seen this in Michigan. They already have a site where there's a water fountain there. There's some steel fabricator made some lifelike figures that look like construction workers. There's like 8 or 9 of them. They got hard hats. They got safety vests. They've got a survey rod in their hand. And they're all kind of walking around. So it gets your attention. They have a big plaque there and all that kind of stuff that kind of tells you the message that we're trying to get across. And it's a nice place just to sit down and eat. But everybody that stops at that rest area has to walk by there and see it. So that's the first thing we're going to do is make this happen. We got to find the right guys. I don't know if anybody knows that guy. They need to be creative and kind of understand some of the BRs. Then, once we do that, now we can start to go get some drawings done and get an idea of what this is going to cost. Because, by the way, this is a public-private partnership. So this is going to be something that the private side is going to need to fund. The department is going to work with us and provide the space at the rest areas. We need to provide the design. So once we get to that step, then we're going to try to create a fundraising effort to collect the money needed to get this dedication area done. And I know Mike Rand's already agreed at some point to throw $50,000 in the pot to get this thing going because he wants to get this thing started because it's important. It should be important to all of us to recognize our folks and try to get people in our industry on the road to slow down. So stay tuned. We'll have more on this coming down the road. All right. I'm done. I'm done listening to myself talk. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited about the year ahead.